So I'm driving right now, and I decided this would probably be a great time to make a video about the pros and cons of home health nursing. So if I'm not staring at the camera, you know why. But I did home health for 1 year, and I really, before I did home health, I watched a lot of YouTube videos on the pros and cons. And so now, after a year of doing it, I wanted to make my own video about home health. I did home health initially because I had graduated nursing school, and after nursing school, I took a little break off because I had my son. And so I didn't want to go and initially do a hospital job because I had such a young son at home and I couldn't do night shifts and all this stuff. So home health was a great fit for me. So now I'm just going to tell you guys the pros and cons. I'm going to start with the pros, and then we'll go to the cons because, overall, it was a great experience, but I am not a home health nurse anymore, so it wasn't the right fit for me. But I do know a lot of people who do love it, and I do know a lot of people who hate it, so it really goes both ways. So my pros, number one, the greatest thing was you could pick what days you work. So you can choose, every week you give them your schedule the week prior. That's how my company works. So you would say, I can work next Monday, next Wednesday, and Friday. So you would give them your schedule the week prior, and then the next week they would schedule you on the 3 days that you gave. Now, it really depends, if you're part-time, full-time, per diem. I was part-time, so my requirement was I had to work 3 days a week. Some weeks I'd work 2 days and they wouldn't really care. It's just majority of the time you have to work 3 days. Full-time was 5 days a week, and they required some weekends for full-time, not part-time at my company, just full-time employees. As well, per diem, per diem is whatever, 1 day a week, whatever you have available. But with each group, full-time got first options, so they got the patients closest to them. Part-time got the next group of patients, so then per diem kind of got their least, they're not their first choice. You would maybe get the farthest patients, or just like I said, full-time got the patients they wanted, the amount they wanted, and the location generally, and then part-time next, and then per diem. Okay, so my second thing was second pro, start and end your day according to your speed. So this really depends on the type of nurse you are. I am a slow nurse. I am not a fast nurse. I like to take my time. I like to talk to my patients. So I needed a little more time, and I spent a lot more time with my patients. So I could only really fit, as an RN doing a lot of start of care visits, I could only really fit 5 to 8 patients a day. That was my load. I'm slow though. There's other people who go faster. So I would generally start my day at 9 or 10, which was great. That was great. Plus I didn't have to start at 8, and I'd end around 6 or 7. So just so you know, you schedule your patients the night before, and so that's another con, actually. We'll go there. But you do get to pick what time you go to each patient's house, and you have to talk to the patient and confirm, and then it's really if you can fit 5 patients in at 6 a.m. to 2 p.m., you end at 2 p.m. So that's kind of a cool thing if you're faster, I guess, more so than slower like me. Number 3, no 12-hour shifts. Sorry, I wrote them all down because I wanted to make sure I got them all across to you guys, because I will forget some of them. So number 3 pro, no do 12-hour shifts, which is great. I am not someone who likes to go 12 hours straight. I guess it is nice because you only have to work 3 days a week, but I got really fatigued working 12-hour shifts when I did clinicals in the hospital, and I just remember feeling a little loopy. So I like that, you know, I didn't have the 12-hour shifts with home health. Also, if you have a kid, doing 12-hour night shifts is a little difficult to kind of fit in. Like, when are you gonna sleep? Because your kids are just gonna wake you up. So yeah, the 12-hour shift doesn't work well with being a mom, I guess. But it doesn't, I'm not saying everyone's like that. That's just how I felt. So there's that number 3 pro. No 12-hour shifts. Number 4, you work from your car. So some people might hate this, but I loved it. I love being in my car. I love driving. I love like listening to podcasts. I like snacking in the car. When you're in the hospital, you know, you're stuck in a building all day. You don't get sunlight. It's just different environments. I like being independent and alone, I guess. And in a hospital, you're surrounded by, you know, fellow nurses, LVNs, CNAs, doctors. It's a little more lively, but a lot more interaction. So I guess I'm a little of an introvert because I like being in my car and being alone and doing my thing. But I found that to be a pro, and for others, it might be a con. So, you know, that's a pro for me and maybe a con for you, or a pro for you. Maybe you're like me. Okay, next pro. Oh, yes. This was a big one, and I think it's something that changes you as a nurse. It's like, it shifts you, but you become really independent because you are completely alone the whole time. You are with the patient. You know, you enter their home, and from start to finish, it's all you. You do the start of care, you do the assessment, you do all the charting. I mean, I know nurses always do the charting for their patients, but yeah, so it's completely on you to kind of do everything. And so you learn how to be a very independent, autonomous nurse who handles whatever stuff flies your way, because, you know, you never know what you're walking into. And I found that was a big shift, and it made a really substantial difference in my growth as a nurse. It really pushed me, and yeah, it was something that really helped me grow. And I think being a nurse who can handle like any situation is really quite important. So yeah, independent, self-sufficient nurse. Number 6 pro, you can chart in bed. Okay, so this one goes both ways. I'll tell you the con of it, but the pro of it is that you can literally chart in bed if you want to. It's a little harder when you have a kid, but if after a shift, if you want, you can just lay in bed, drink your wine. Not too much though, because that wouldn't be good. But you really can just take your time charting. You don't have to chart, you know, in a patient's room or whatever. So that's kind of where I like that aspect of it. There is a lot of charting though, and we'll get there. Number 7. So this one, it depends on the patient, obviously, but you can really get to know your patients, which is cool. Because you're the only nurse, you're kind of like their healthcare provider, and so you really get to know them. And there's a lot of cool people out there. I mean, of course, every patient, you never know what you're gonna get, but you really get to know them, and they feel like you're the person they can go to, and it's sweet. It's a sweet thing, unless your patient is a nightmare, but that's just working in the healthcare field. So it's kind of, you don't know what you're going to get. But when you find that person, that patient that really just is cool, it's really fun. You know, those were the visits that always made my home health worth it. And I still remember some of the patients because they were so cool. I'm just gonna park here. I don't even know where I am, but I'm just gonna park here just to finish. So cons. Okay, so cons, these are my cons. Obviously everyone is different and these could be pros for you. So number one, overscheduling. This happened a lot. There were days where I would be very open to taking more patients than normal. And especially if they were not start of care visits, which take for RNs generally an hour, like wound care visits or some sort of, like IVs, what's it called? Catheters, like that stuff would take 30 minutes or less. So you could fit a bunch in, but they generally tend to overschedule you. I don't know what it is, and I've heard this in other YouTube videos, but you say you can take 5 patients that day and they'll give you 8. And it gradually happens over time. They don't do that at the beginning when you're new, but as you stay at the company longer, they kind of overload you. And even when you're seeing patients, they'll ask you if you could fit in another patient. And that was a little bit intense for me because, like I said, I'm slow. I like to take my time with patients. And so when they asked me to fit someone in between or at the end of my day, I was exhausted. I would do it. I would take them once in a while, but like I said, they just overload you most of the time. And maybe other companies are different, but mine definitely gave me a lot of patients on at least once a week, at least. That's on the lower end. Number 2 con, gas prices right now are insane. So I was doing it when the gas prices were a little lower, but they're getting higher, and my car is not a Prius. It is not a Prius, and it takes a lot of gas. So that is something that you have to consider, the wear and tear in your car and the gas that you're going to use. That in itself takes away from the amount you make per visit. My company paid per visit, not per hour. So, I would have to deduct that from the visit because I would think, okay, so there's this patient. How much did I spend in gas? Because that now it would be really significant. So I don't know if it's gas prices are so high. I don't even know. Maybe if you have a Prius or some sort of electric car, this would be a good thing because this would not be a con for you as much. Okay. Okay, the con, I said you learn a lot of independence in this. So you become very self-sufficient. But the negative is that you don't have help. So if you do need help, it's like, what do I do? And, generally you have to sit there and think about what you should do. I always took my time to kind of do everything with patients so that I wouldn't mess up, or if I couldn't stick an IV, which didn't happen, surprisingly, I always got them. I mean, sometimes it took 2 sticks, but it happened. But if we had any issues as a home health nurse, you have to either figure it out yourself. You can call your case manager or higher up nurse at the office, but sometimes they were so busy, you couldn't even get a hold of them. So this is where it could be a con if you are stuck in a rut. It never fully happened to me where I was just completely unable to help a patient, but I did deal with some really complicated patients that I needed to get in contact with the office and they couldn't get on the phone with me, and I had to say, we're gonna have to reschedule you if it wasn't like a life or death type of thing. But generally with home health, it's not life or death. So they're generally in like a pretty healthy state where you can go to the home and they're not that hospital. So let's see. So yeah, no help, you're by yourself. That's number 3 con. Number 4, so I said it's nice that you could chart in the bed, but the number 4 con is that you have so much charting. It is a lot. Even when I started, it would take me like 2 hours to chart a patient for a start of care visit, because that's important. It's a start of care visit that took 2 hours. Over time, I got it down to like 1 hour, 15 minutes. But still, it took me about 1 hour and 15 minutes to do it, because there's multiple components to the start of care visit. There's all of the charting for all body systems, and then you have your order that your doctor, the physician, has to read, which you do in a certain format. And then you have to order supplies. You have to reach out to different nurses to let them know certain things. So there was just a lot. It's a lot of emailing. It's a lot of charting, a lot. And so I couldn't, when I took 8 patients in a day, I couldn't even work the next day because I needed to chart all 8 patients. And if they were all start of care, it would take me 8 hours. So I would say, if you don't have kids, if you don't have any obligations, it's great. But for me, when I came home, I have a young kid and he demands my attention. So it was a little difficult. But it could be great for you. You could like put on a movie and chart and, you know, snack if you have the time. So it might not be a con. So number 5 con is the night before you have to call your patients to schedule for the next day. Some days they would release the patients for your schedule late, and then you'd have to call them and they'd be mad that you are calling so late, so they didn't like that. So that's one thing. And then it took you about, it took me like an hour to call 8 patients, because I would have to figure out the address of where they live. I'd have to write down, I would always have like a notebook, and I'd write down my 8 patients. I'd write down their names. I'd write down why I'm seeing them. I'd write their addresses. Then I'd have to do a map, a Google Maps, and I'd have to link all the addresses, figure out which one I'm going to see first, which one I'm going to see last. And then I'd have to call them all, make sure that the time works for that patient. Like, hey, can I come over at 9 tomorrow to do wound care? And then I would call the next patient. Hey, is 10:30 okay to do a start of care visit? And I'd have to allot times. And sometimes it didn't go smoothly. Sometimes the patient didn't want to be seen in the morning. They wanted to be seen at night. Or the 2 patients that live right next to each other didn't want to be seen at the same time. And I'd have to kind of circle back. And so that was a big thing for me. I did not like that. I did not like calling my patients the night before. I did not like scheduling all that. I want to work somewhere where I go in and those are all my patients. And I don't have to call them. They're just there and I see them as they come, versus trying to plan all that. So that was a big stressor for me. That was a huge con. And the next one, my last one, the 6th con is, this one wasn't a huge one. I thought this would be a bigger deal, but it wasn't. You have to go to people's homes. So I don't know, as like a female, I sometimes felt a little weird, especially if like it was like a kind of a younger man. I don't know who they are. I mean, most of the time they were really sweet, but you're entering their home, you don't know who they are, and you have to kind of situate yourself. Like, you have to think, okay, what if he is weird? What if he does this? What if he makes me feel uncomfortable? And generally that didn't happen. I think maybe it happened like once or twice, and I just had to assert myself and be, you know, just don't act weak, I guess. Act like you are confident and strong, and if they say anything, you let them know that that's not correct, you know. And that didn't happen. Like I said, I was really lucky, but I did feel uncomfortable a few times. And so that is another big thing I'd say about home health, is just depending on the person, the nurse, you could feel uncomfortable in certain homes. And it's scary because you are alone. In a hospital, you have other people around. You have other nurses, you have doctors, you have staff, but in the home, you're by yourself. And I just always made it a point to, if I felt uncomfortable, I would let them know, you know, we're going to do the procedure in this room because it was next to the door or something like that. Unless, you know, of course they couldn't get up or something. But then, I mean, there's less to worry about in that case if they can't. But anyways, that was the 6th concern, the con. And I think that's it. That's my list. I am not doing home health anymore. I did it for a year. It was a great experience. It was really good for a new mom going into the nursing field. It was hard, but it was good for scheduling. Now I can see myself wanting to work more in a clinic. So I actually am going in that direction now, because I don't see myself in a hospital and I don't see myself doing home health anymore. So now I'm just looking for a clinic right now to work in a doctor's office. So I'll update you guys on that once I get that going, you know. So I hope you guys enjoyed my video. This was all my opinion about home health. I know there's tons of different people out there who will disagree with me or agree with me, so just keep it in mind that this is just all of my opinion, and I'm just throwing it out there because this really helped me before I started home health. So good luck on your journey if you guys are doing home health. If you have any questions, go ahead and comment and I will let you know about anything. I'll give you my opinion on anything regarding home health. Yeah, so that's it. Thanks guys for watching. Till next time.